lots of money. Then you as an investor with your group of investors, you buy stocks, bonds, or any other assets that you think are worthy. And this is done so that you as investors, like my friend Shanice and her friends, are quickly building the portfolio you need rather than I think we also gained clarity on the power of buying and holding strategy. Jeff also highlighted the increase that comes with your values, with the value of your fund share, and how that is directly connected to what you get in return. This week we are also upping our game as we are learning about a different way of investing. So you can imagine that Jeff Kariwa is back in the studio. Jeff is the founder and executive chairman of Aramis Capital, which is a financial services company. He's also a businessman with over 10 years experience. So I was just Jeff. And Jeff is one of those cross-border. Jeff has experience working in South Africa as well. So cross-border. And what I love about today, Jeff did not come alone, and he's definitely not sitting next to Stephen. Stephen, we miss you. Shout out to you. We have another guest of the week, and I'll introduce him a little bit later. But let me just tell you a little bit more about this guy. You want your ultimate investment manager, someone who is keeping his eye on emerging markets. He's your go-to guy as far as debt is concerned, equity and structured financial transactions. You find out today what all these things mean. We're truly upping our game, right? Yes, Zimbabwe is predominantly made of the informal sector, but we too can reap benefits from our investments and our business acumen that we're learning, even though we are considered informal. So I want you and I to get right into our discussion today, right? So I'm sure you're one of those guys as well. Maybe you watch these fancy TV programs. Wakambo Wireless knows the private equity funds, hedge funds, venture capital funds, cryptocurrency, or maybe even collectibles. All these are examples of what they call alternative investments. So in short, I'm going to put it in simple English for you and I to understand, right? But Jeff and our guest of the week will come in and certainly unpack it for us. But when we're talking about alternative investments, we're talking about those investments that are not in the typical investment classes we've spoken about. So they're definitely not bonds. They are likely not cash. Certainly not stocks. We'll find out from Jeff if these kind of investments are also very easy to sell. Are they easily convertible into cash? So if you're ready to learn, well, grab a seat because this is the crunch of the Nubian Queen, the international African. Let's do this.
You want to ship goods from China, Dubai, or Turkey? Your multi-award-winning brand, Beyond Borders Logistics, is giving you some of the very best offers on the shipping market today. Book our China to Zimbabwe Priority Express shipping service and much more. Find out today how we can go above and beyond for you. Contact our teams on the China Corridor, Mandy on +86 139 7038 2526. Jolene on +86 137 1925 8125. Dubai Corridor, Hasil on +971 58 170 0334. Najad +971 52 379 2369. Harare on 08644 290021 or 08644 878164 or 0783 778 443. When sending or receiving your goods, do you want to experience the most innovative and efficient courier service in Zimbabwe? You can track your goods throughout the transportation process. Guarantee safe delivery of your goods today with our unparalleled overnight, rush and on-demand and same-day delivery services. Get in touch with our business development team on 0713-635-848 or 0783-778-443. Soka, better delivery. Tuchimanya.
It is certainly the crunch on a Monday. This is Big Business Pep Talk. We're really talking big business here. Real big. I did promise you Jeff is here with our guest of the week, which you'll meet in a second. But Jeff, good morning and welcome to Capital 100.4 FM. We are always excited to have you coming in. Today we are honing in on alternative investments, which is, it almost sounds like a very difficult concept to grasp. But somehow it seems as if we hardly hear of alternative investment. Why is that, Jeff?
Yeah, so good morning and thank you for having me here again. So when we talk about alternative investments, pretty much we don't hear much about it because it's it's capital intensive pretty much. So the barrier to investment is very high. So it's normally something that is passed on to your high net worth individuals, pension funds, and large corporates, because generally they do have the capacity to be able to participate in such investment schemes.
Right. And so when we're talking about alternative investment, how popular is that in Zimbabwe right now?
So when we talk about alternative investments, there are quite a number of projects that are happening behind the scenes that people are aware of, especially when you're not in the scene itself. You're looking at the acquisition of maybe ongoing operations of different businesses. Like I mentioned last week or the week before, when the wholesaler was bought. That's a typical alternative investment structure where a group of investors come through and they put together their monies and then they buy a specific business because they believe in its potential and they can be able to generate a reward. Or they recently, I think it's just concluded the Hewlett acquisition, where there's a group of Zimbabweans and South Africans who partnered into acquiring that. So those are some of the alternative investment schemes that are pretty much happening as we speak.
I read somewhere that they say when you're looking at alternative investment, there's a sense of looking for returns in the real economy rather than from second traditional financial returns that actually over the last few. What does that even mean?
Okay, so to break it down for the layman to understand, it's pretty much the same thing. The only difference is you're not dealing with listed entities. So for instance, if I want to buy a private business which is not listed on the stock exchange, we can be able to approach that business, understand its valuation and be able to outright buy it completely or be able to buy a portion of that business. So we're holding on to shares of that particular business and expect a return at the end of every year, which in the form of a dividend, just the same as you would earn if you're buying listed entities, right? Another form is your venture capital. It's also falls under alternative investments where you're pretty much raising money in the market and you're financing newly established businesses. So there's quite a lot of high risk there because they haven't reached the standard of being listed on a stock exchange because it's quite rigorous and there's so many things that they have to go through in terms of like even years of operation, which maybe they don't have yet because they're still trying to prove a concept. So you'll find those type of businesses generally then come to your asset managers to raise capital, who will then go into the market, raise the money on their behalf and invest. So those are some of the alternative investments that are there.
It's Jeff Kariwa's voice. They're teaching us a little bit more about the other way of investing, alternative investment. Jeff, talk to us a little bit more specifically, and I think you sort of started doing that for us, about the characteristics that makes alternative investments the other investment option. Do they, for example, move in the same direction as other assets do when market conditions change?
So when market conditions change, you'd find that it depends on the conditions themselves. Are they broad in the sense that are they affecting the whole market? So I'll give you an example. So let's say there's a bakery that's about to open. We like its operations. We want to buy into that same bakery. So we approach it, the owner of the bakery, we buy a few shares in there, so maybe we now own 50% of the business. Now, if there's going to be a drought and then there's wheat shortage, it now means it's going to affect the business just the same as it will affect a listed entity which is also operating a bakery business.
Right.
So you'll find you've got the same challenges.
You've also been teaching us, Jeff, about being clear about why you are getting in a sort of investment that you are. What sort of goals would inform the decision to actually get into alternative investments? Uda uzotenga imba here, unoda kuti kana 60 yasvika wai ichigara kumba nezvizukuru uri kuziva kuti aiwa uchakwanisa kutenga bheko nemasamba nengusisi kuenda basa. What sort of investment strategy or objectives would be suited by somebody who would get into alternative investments?
Well, I think it's best suited for people with long-term goals. Pretty much,
Still?
Yeah, you're looking at your 10-year horizon. If I try and maybe cut that short, maybe at least 5 years. Why? Because when you talk about alternative investments, they're pretty much difficult to enter and exit because it's not something that's publicly traded. So it means you have to find somebody else willing to take your place in that position for you to be able to exit.
Right.
So you rather work with a defined period. So if it's got a five-year horizon, it means your exit period is in 5 years. If it's 10 years, etc. It can go on 20, 30 years, depending on what type of project is being done.
Right. So in other words, you can't cash this as quickly as you may want to. This is not your kind of investment.
No, I won't advise that.
It is Capital 100.4 FM, Harare Zapi. We're talking about alternative investments today, but also trying to understand how exactly you and I can make money from them. We're speaking rather generally at this point, just trying to grasp what the concept is before we start looking at the different kinds of alternative investments. This is because alternative investments and looking at least 5 years before you're actually going to be able to see some returns from that investment. Last week and maybe you are part of some sort of investment plan where when you've come together with some friends and decided we want to buy into this privately listed company. I made an observation there, because I think we're very clear to mention that it's not your typical, it's not trading public. Right, and we'll get to that. Also, would you say this is a good way to diversify your portfolio? You were talking to us last week about how mutual funds speak to diversification of portfolio. Would alternative investments be a great way to diversify your portfolio?
Yeah, I think they are, because we have quite a limited range of listed products in which we can participate in. So alternative investments is typically opening up your options, so you've got better choices. Because some of the best companies, maybe you'll find are not listed, or some of the best ideas are not traded on the listed markets. And also, there's a possibility of earning higher returns when you look at alternative investments. The downside on that is maybe there's a bit more risk, so it now depends on your risk profile.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I did promise earlier that we do have a guest of the week in studio. I did tell you he's an investment manager. He's your go-to guy if you're thinking of structuring any financial transactions, private equity investment, which we'll also want to understand. So whatever it is, he has much experience dealing with large to medium-sized companies, and he has done quite a bit of work across the region. If you're thinking your mining, your medical services, agribusiness, even renewable energy, he's been that guy. He's also been involved in fast-moving consumer goods and my FMCG. And we're quite excited to have him in the studio today. Please be kind to him. He is nervous. I feel like in Graham, good morning. Thank you so much for coming in today. We're quite excited to have you in. You are the one guy who I think would be best. Jeff is great, but I think you would be great today talking to us a little bit more about types of alternative funding. Let's talk about private equity funds. What exactly is private equity funds?
Hi, Felicia. I'm happy to be here. So when you're talking about private equity investments, this is primarily investments in partnerships that buy private businesses. They manage them for a particular period of time. and then with the intention of selling them off to probably other institutional investors after they have more or less enjoyed a specific return that they would have probably defined at the very beginning. So this is just a pool of private funds. They look at probably specific industries that they want to invest in. They buy into a company, either most times majority stake, so that they can control what happens in the company. They run it for a period of time, 3 to 5 years, and after they have enjoyed a specific return that they would have probably defined at initiation, they sell it off, probably back to the original owners of the business or to other investors after they've grown the business to a certain point. So that's what we mean by private equity.
Yeah, it sounds like this is big boy stuff. I don't think, small players will be able to play at this level, because just listening to you talk, there are so many dynamics that are coming into this. But maybe before we even touch on those dynamics, talk to us about this idea of private companies or investing in private access. How is this opening up opening an investor to opportunities within investment versus just going for a publicly listed company, for example, or a company that's trading on the stock exchange?
So private companies predominantly they're not as regulated as public companies, right? And most times you'd find the investor will enjoy a higher return versus your traditional investments in stocks, bonds, and cash, like what you've been talking about for the last 2 weeks. So yes, private companies then present an opportunity to have access to higher margin for your dollar invested. So it then, like what you're saying, diversify your portfolio, you begin to enjoy high returns. But also you need to take cognizance that with high returns there's also high risk that comes into play.
Yeah, so looking at this idea of privatization, in my mind, anything that goes private is playing by different ball game rules because it's private, right? Doesn't this then mean you are exposed? In other words, how secure are you trying to invest in a company that's privately listed?
So it also goes back to before you make an investment in a public entity, in a private entity, you have to more or less do your due diligence. Right? You just don't throw your money anywhere and everywhere. So there's an element of due diligence that has to take place before you place funds with a private company. So like what we're talking about with private equity, right? So they're pulling funds from different people. For like you can throw in $1,000, NASA can throw in $1 million, right? So obviously you are putting your trust in that private equity fund that then goes to invest into these private companies. So you are more or less trusting them to do the due diligence to say, okay, in this private company that this private equity firm is investing in, they've done all the due diligence. They've looked at the management. They've looked at all regulatory approvals. They've looked at the risk profiles that make sure that for like its money is not lost.
It is Capital 100.4 FM, Harada's Habit. Graham is teaching us, speaking also from where Jeff had left us, teaching us what exactly private equity is as a type of alternative funding. And don't worry, we'll get to real estate, we'll get to cryptocurrency, we'll get to the ones that you may recognize, gold even, as well as other things in energy. But today we thought we'd start off trying to understand how private equity also works, particularly if you are at this level of investment where now you're saying, for like in the Tashmajong, and she has even though it has saying that Tenga ma GD6 and she has even GD6 is not an investment. And one thing that Jeff has also been highlighting to us is if you have bought anything that is costing you money to maintain and is not making you money, that thing is not an investment. Your house, as long as it is not making you money, whether you are working or not, in itself is not an investment. Today is the 18th of March. We're going to take a look at some important things that happened today in history, and also we have Shami Fox giving us our Monday motivation, all coming up next on Capital 100.4 FM. Harare's Heartbeat.
Dear Travis, the queen of Harare's radio jungle. Folake on Capital 100.4 FM. Big Business Pep Talk was brought to you by your business partners, Urban Create Advertising Agency, Beyond Borders Logistics, and Soka International. Talk to us on +263-772-409-651. Your success, our commitment.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Monday Motivation with Coach Shami Fox. I'm super excited for this week, and I know you're going to be great, and I know it's going to be an awesome week for you. You know what? I know things might not be going the way you think they should be, and sometimes you probably have gone down and you're thinking, oh, what is going to happen to me? And you're like, I can never rise from this. But I just want to tell you something. You can rise. You can rise. And just tell yourself, I will rise. Yes, it might not seem to be working out the way you think it should be working out, but you will rise. Here's the good news about it. The word even says in Micah 7:7, do not gloat over me, my enemy. Though I have fallen, I will rise. Though I sit in darkness, the Lord will be my light. So you know there are times when you're in an issue in your life, whatever it is. Maybe you wrote that paper and it failed. Maybe you applied for a job and you didn't get it. Maybe you started a business and it flopped. Maybe you tried a new relationship and it didn't work out. So right now you are down. You are at a place where you feel like, I am not going to come out of this. And you probably are telling yourself, you know what, it always happens to me. Each time I try to do something, nothing good comes out of it. Each time I try to be with someone, they end up feeling like they don't like me anymore. Each time I try a business, it's like there's something that's working against me. But you know what? I want to tell you that you will rise, and those falls, they are lessons and you can draw from them. So what is it? You've always wanted to write again. Just write. Take out that book, that paper. Take it out. Take out the pen and start writing again. Write that cookbook. Write that motivational book. Write that dissertation. Do it again. It can happen. You've always wanted to be a lawyer, but you seem to have failed, and you had to try again. Do it. Go for it. You wanted to sing, and it seemed like everything was working against you. Go back to that recording studio and record again. You know, the only thing that will be stopping you right now, it is you, because you don't want to restart. You feel like restarting is for failures. You feel like restarting is not for you. But you know what? Everyone that has made it in life, they started somewhere, they fell, they got back up again, and they had to do it. You know, I love the poem by Maya Angelou, Still I Rise. So I'm just going to read an excerpt from her poem. It says that, you may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very pit, but still like dust, I will rise. So yes, people may throw those words at you. People may say things that are bad. People may pull you down with their words. But you know what? You're a child of God. You can rise. Rise again. Rise again. And she says that you may shoot me down with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness. But still, like I will rise. So every other great person out there, they have risen from the deepest pits. yes, you are there and you're saying, this is hard. It's not hard. You can rise from anything. And the nice thing about it is you just have to start seeing things differently. So this week, let your mantra be, I want to see differently. I want to do things differently. I am ready to see differently. I commit myself to seeing differently. I now choose to see differently. Tell yourself that, and I am seeing differently. My life, my experiences, everything, I'm going to be seeing differently. Because you know what? God.
Hope with Shami. So Coach Shami, that was right. You pick yourself up. It's okay sometimes to fall. It's okay to feel inadequate, but the important thing is that still you rise. By now, Coach Shami, the only person that is stopping you is you. Dona, as you know from Aguita, Kumuka. So we're going to be continuing with our discussion on alternative investments, and I'm wondering if it's making sense to you as well as somebody who is thinking about. We've been, in fact, it's hashtag building businesses that are legacy to our children. Okay, that's a bit of a long hashtag, but I think you get the point, right? Whatever it is that you are saying for like, hey, this is how I'm making money. How have you been thinking in terms of your children? Can they be able to pick up from where you leave it and continue? And we've been asking the question, are you looking for financial freedom, or are you also the kind of person that's just happy to be an employee all your life? And those are some of the questions you need to keep asking yourself as far as where you need to be getting, as far as investment is concerned, as far as being able to enjoy quality life without always having to go to work. Money should be working for you. So are you looking for financial freedom, or is it financial security? Most of us at this juncture, we're at financial security. But how many of us are actually enjoying financial freedom where you don't have to go to work? And this is why we are having these conversations where we are learning how the rich, the wealth, not even the rich, the wealthy are living. I think we've been challenging that thinking. Before we continue our discussion, today is the 18th of May. Let's take a look into history, what happened on this day in 1949. So at the end of World War II, there was a coming together of countries in the name of political strength, unity, and security against just one country. And it was born on this day because these countries were worried that this single country, and I wonder if you can figure out which country it is, could possibly continue to grow its territory into Western Europe. So this single country had actually gone in place like buffer zones, right, of communist governments. I've given you a hint there, into Eastern Europe. We're not going to do this. So what did they do, shaking their boots? They decided that for them to be able to handle this one country, they would form the North Atlantic Treaty Organization called NATO. You know, Muramba Kukundwa, America in other words, would not have this single communist state spread its wings and gain more territory. No way. So today when you're looking at NATO, it has more than 29 member states with only one member that doesn't have an army. So the rest of them came together primarily because trying to put in their single army, to make a single army, right? NATO officially came into existence, however, on April the 4th when they signed the Washington Treaty at the end of World War II, like I said. Right now, can you imagine, NATO has a combined troop and personnel and armed forces around the world, sitting at almost 4 million people. 110,000 military personnel right now are engaged in different NATO missions across the world, either or they are involved in peacekeeping efforts. Munum Africa, yeah, you guess it right, they are also in Africa. In fact, the organization has had countless missions in North and East Africa. We requested as AU the involvement of NATO in Sudan, later on Somalia, sorry. But my story doesn't end there. Can you figure out which country, the single country, has had at least 30 countries coming together? Can you name which country that is? 0719-100-404. I've given you a clue. I've given you that it's in Europe. It had set up buffer zones in East Europe, West, and I mean West, Western Europe and other Western countries west of east of Europe, including Wana Muramba Kukundwa, all decided, listen, we are not playing games. So which one country do you think that is? I'll tell you which that country is in a minute and what its strength actually looks like in relation to NATO. We'll continue our discussion as well as far as alternative investments are concerned. Graham had joined in the conversation there, and he was giving us insights into how exactly capital investment are concerned, who is interested in this. You and a group of other people come together, you pick a company that you say, let's buy this company. Let's buy this company, let's grow it. And then, company, either what it's virtual or to somebody else, and that's part of how you make your money. And that's after you would have reached a certain point where you and the people that you have come together have agreed that this is a good return on investment. Let's move on. Graham, I also wanted to ask, when you are looking at this kind of investment, does that necessarily mean, and I think Jeff was also given an example of the sugar company, I wanted to ask, is it always the case that the company that you are then going to buy in as an alternative investment vehicle, one that's trying to, is it facing foreclosure? Are they in debt? How do you pick the company that you are going to invest in? Am I making sense there?
Yes, you are. So usually some companies are distressed, they're struggling, and they're looking for investment. They're looking for partners to grow their business or to complement them so that they can grow. So they present an opportunity to the market for participation. So that's when, because you can't just go knocking around and asking them, are you up for sale or whatever it is. No.
Yeah.
So they will present an opportunity for them to get investment. Then people can come in and probably buy into the company depending on what the private company wants and needs. So I hope
Yes, you did. Jeff, you also spoke a little bit earlier about how when you are investing in alternative funds, there's a probability that that money is not coming back tomorrow now. You were very polite and said 5 years, but I think it possibly could be long, thinking about how, if you're injecting capital into a business, it's not always going to quickly realize returns. So I then wanted to ask, how is this fund managed? Jeff na Graham company sugar. How is this fund then managed between the three of us?
Right. That's a very good question. So what happens is pretty much you have an asset manager who comes into play, right? So he's the financial expert in this whole investment scheme that you're putting together. So he's the elected manager. So he's putting the funds together for each and every individual, put them together into a specific fund, which he's then going to be running and managing, right? He's the one who's going to do the due diligence, like what Graham was saying, and then he's the one who's going to make the placement on your behalf, right? So having done his assessments, he would have figured out whether it's a good investment or not, and then he can then proceed to make that investment on your behalf. But like you were saying, in many cases, no one can predict the future. All you have is the history and the present, right? And you can try and determine what the future outcome might be based on historical figures and past growth and the current circumstances of the business. So all you're pretty much doing is you're putting your best foot forward, right? You are hoping for the best. You have done all you can do to minimize the risk just in case the business might collapse, because maybe you might put in the money into that business and then it doesn't work out the way you wanted it. For instance, maybe there might be drastic policy changes in the country or on a global perspective which just make that business non-viable, and then you end up losing money. Yeah.
And so we've been learning today about alternative investment, and today we just looked at the one type, which is private equity funds. Yes, you're right, real estate will come in there. I did also highlight collectibles. I actually read there's one guy who has like over 200 classics and vintage cars.
Yes.
You can only drive one car at a time.
Yeah.
But then, when you're looking at it from an investment point of view, he may be collecting them, realizing that he is transferring his investment into another form, which is the collectibles.
Yeah. So what happens is in the investment space, there's art as well, which you can consider. So
Art.
yeah, art tends to appreciate all the time. So what you need to do is be able to put together the money, be able to pick the right pieces of art. Because I look at collectibles as a form of art as well.
Right.
You're looking at rare vehicles, and pretty much, from my understanding, is the more rarer the vehicle is, the more valuable it becomes over time. So you'll find in the automotive world, you might have maybe one car where it's only one ever made, or maybe 10 in the whole world. So what then tends to happen is the demand for that particular vehicle tends to grow, and the value also grows over time. So people who understand that space then invest into those vehicles, hold on to them for a period of time, then sell them off. Similar to art, the more rare the piece of art is, the more valuable it becomes, like the Mona Lisa. Priceless.
Got you. So today, this is where we're going to leave it. We only looked at one investment type, as I said. We started looking at collectibles there, but there is also real estate. And I know you are curious about how we can get property involved in this conversation about how you can store your investment. We're also going to talk about natural resources and also venture capital funds. Is this something we should know, especially from a Zimbabwean context, Graham, before we shut down the conversation today? There are three types, right, of private equities. Kunana, venture capital funds, my hedge funds. Just I don't know my filmish. I think I've watched like 10 films that have this hedge fund thing. I think there's actually a show, The Billionaire or something, that has a similar concept. I think I'm trying to see.
Yeah, it's called Billions.
There we go. You see, Jeff was when I was doing this was my feelings. Is this stuff, Graham, that we should be aware of in a Zimbabwean context in terms of investment?
Yes, pretty much venture capital or venture capitalist firms, private equity funds, and the hedge funds you're talking about, they are probably an umbrella for private equity. So venture capital, they're looking at startups,
Right.
Companies that are very young, that have an enormous growth horizon, or some people might be wanting just to invest in tech companies. So these are startups that need capital. That's venture capital funds. Private equity, that's what we've been discussing, I think, throughout the program. Hedge funds, then this is a class of family offices, private companies that go into the market and start raising capital and place in your stocks, your bonds, whatever it is. So it's just private equity. It's private equity that has been pulled together to invest in different type of investments. So that's just how they have been.
I wish this stuff would be taught in school. I get it. I think even in a country like Zimbabwe, we are still first generation, post-colonialization, post financial freedom in that sense. But I wish this was stuff we were taught in school to change the way we see the possibilities that are out there.
True. It's actually, all I can say is it's being taught theoretically. Tertiary education in universities. Look at anyone who's done a business degree. They have semblance of understanding of what private equity is, investing, and all of these things. But practically, I think there is more
abstract.
to be done.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's like talking about a spaceship in Mars. It's abstract to us.
Exactly.
But
Yeah, the market, in the market it's happening. There's private equity firms. We've got a lot of private equity firms in Zimbabwe. We've got a lot of
Are
venture
they being
capital
run
firms.
by Africans? Are
Yes.
the Africans leading these spaces?
Yes,
Really?
black-owned private equity firms that are soliciting funds even from your foreign partners. There, we have Takura Capital.
Yeah.
And we also have, like at Aramis Capital, we do have a private equity fund. We've got all these other asset managers around that do have a private equity silo that they're running.
Yeah.
So I think it's more to do with us, the asset managers, the market players, to do more to educate the populace on investment opportunities that are available, and not just make it for a niche market.
Right.
Because investing is open to everyone, and everyone wants to get from financial security to
Yeah, I'm financial freedom. I'm actually seeing even young one did civil servant. Tika shingra na chikoro chose tika tingati ba dazema 200. To tinga building, room town really run down to 200. That is part of what this is, isn't it?
Yes.
Pulling together to say, I can't do it on my own, but let's do it together. Let's find somewhere where we can pump in money so we can get returns on this.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So at any income level, Graham, can we do investments?
Yes. So we've been talking about alternative investments, and I think we've always regulated it to high net worth individuals, right? You look at there's a product in the market. I think it's being run by Silverback Asset Management. You know, the Mombe Mali, right? So you are predominantly the stock or the product that you're investing in is a kilogram of beef. So they're managing about 3 farms all around Zimbabwe. What you're investing in is a kilogram of beef, right? So you are expecting the price of that kilogram of beef to appreciate. So you get in, you buy your 10 kgs, right? You're holding on to them, and when you want to come out, you're selling those 10 kgs of beef, right? So you're expecting that, okay, probably it came, I bought in when it was $6 a kg, and I'm exiting when it was at $10 a kg.
Yeah.
At Aramis Capital, we also have what we call the commodity fund. The commodity fund invests in base minerals, your copper, chrome, manganese.
So I want you to hold that thought because we're going to get there. You are teaching us the ropes of alternative funds.
Yes.
But because we are learning, so we're leaving it there. Jeff, how do we get a hold of you and Graham?
Yeah, so you can get a hold of me on a number 0772 655 247. You can also call us on our landline. Sorry, I just don't know it by here.
It's okay.
It kind of confuses me.
Are you on
sometimes.
social media?
Yeah, it's 249 6371.
Okay.
And then on social media, we are there. Aramis Capital on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter as well.
Aramis Capital. It's Capital 100.4 FM. Harada's happy to go. It's time for us to catch the news.